Hey, you're listening to the Riverdale Podcast. This is episode number 88. My name is Jonathan. Welcome to lovely Riverdale, USA. This is a weekly Archie Comics fan podcast. We update every Saturday, and every week we break things down into 4 categories. The first category is the book of the week. That's the comic book I read this week. Sometimes it's a new comic book, sometimes it's an old comic book, but it's always an Archie comic book. We move then to the news of the week. That's what happened in the world of Archie in the week since our last podcast. We then jump to new releases. That's what came out this past Wednesday. What'll be coming up this coming Wednesday from Archie Comics. And we're going to wrap up today talking about some Archie-related blogs. Some good writing and fact-finding out there in the world of Archie Comics. That's what the show looks like this week. Let's get on to the book of the week. All right, this week's book of the week is Archie Double Digest number 245. And as you know, if you've seen the cover in the solicits or check this out in your shop, it is officially Christmas time in Riverdale. Of course, these comics hit comic shops first, and then they hit grocery stores and bookstores and various other places like that. So Archie gets these things out in plenty of time for people to read before Christmas. But as I said, the cover has a great Christmassy image. This is Archie playing Santa Claus, Betty playing his elf, and Veronica showing up, none too impressed with the situation. It's a great Fernando Ruiz cover on there. And we'll talk a bit more about Fernando Ruiz when we get into the guts of the book. And let's go ahead and do that. Archie Double Digest, 160 pages, 160-odd pages. Lots and lots to get through. But we're going to shoot over, hit some highlights. There's some really, really good stuff in here, some really odd stuff in here. And a good read, always a great value at $3.99. Crazy value. Probably best deal in comics, hands down. We start out with A Tree Grows in Riverdale. This is a Christmas story. We start out with a couple Christmas stories. This first one, A Tree Grows in Riverdale, is about some sentient Christmas trees initially, and then eventually, of course, becomes about the kids doing some great stuff. If you're going to read a comic about the Riverdale gang at Christmas time, you are going to get one of two things. You're going to get sick children at a hospital, or you're going to get orphans at an orphanage. Those are the two go-tos. Those are, I guess, the most vulnerable of children that could be portrayed in an Archie comic. This is no exception. They end up in the children's ward of a hospital, and these sentient trees, Christmas trees, go through a little bit of a adventure together, and it's a weird one. I'm not gonna lie, but ultimately a fun time. It's cool to have a smiling Christmas tree with eyeballs drawn by Stan Goldberg. Maybe the first and last time we ever saw that. Fun story right off the top. The second of the 2 Christmas stories is called Santa's Helper, and this was a super, super charming one. Let me check out the credits here. Again, George Gladier, Stan Goldberg, inks by John Lowe, letters by Bill Yoshida, colors by Barry Grossman. Again, a great team. And this is the story of Archie playing a department store Santa Claus, which he does a lot, a real fair amount. That's a perennial favorite, is watching him struggle to get through his job as a department store Santa. This story is particularly charming. I don't want to give it away, but Archie goes and talks to another Santa Claus, a professional Santa Claus, and gets some advice. And there's a real sweet twist to the end, almost like an O. Henry kind of ending that you're not expecting. Super nice. And this next story caught me by surprise. It's a little Archie story takes place at Christmas time. And this is actually a story I talked about last summer. If you'll remember, I pulled a random issue. It was a slow week. Last summer, I pulled out an issue of the Archie Giant series that happened to be a little Archie story. And it happened to be a little Archie Christmas story. And I decided to just run with it last summer. And this is the story. So I won't go over that again, but it was a lot of fun. That was another Archie story involving orphans. That was a Bob Bowling little Archie story. And the second most important little Archie artist, in my opinion, Dexter Taylor, has the next story, Little Archie in the Santa Spirit. And this involves the little Archies decorating a doghouse for Christmas and winning a contest. Spoiler alert, they won the contest. I'll skip ahead a bunch here. There's a lot of great shorter stories. There's a couple great things here. Archie in Bed Check. This was a cool story. Old school stuff, written by Frank Doyle, penciled and inked by Harry Lucy, the legendary Harry Lucy. Letters by Bill Yoshida, colors by Barry Grossman. Gives you a little bit of an idea as to how far back Barry Grossman and Bill Yoshida go with the company. And they worked on books right up until the early 2000s, I believe. The late 90s, at least. And this is a cool story that is generational. This is Archie's father pulling a prank on Archie that his father pulled on him. And that was a sweet story and funny and charming. And, of course, drawn by Harry Lucy, so you can't go wrong there. And there's another fantastic one I'm scrolling through. Again, a great old Fernando Ruiz story. I'd place it probably in the late 90s. And his rendering of the Archie gang has changed a lot. And I like his older style, but I love his newer style. I think that he has a real way with the characters now. And it's cool to go back and look at those older stories and see the progression there. Another great Frank Doyle, Harry Lucy story called Tiger. Didn't make a lick of sense to me, but it sure was pretty. Here we are. This is the weird one. I'm so psyched about this one. I think this is the reason to get the book. If not for the Pat the Brat stories later on, this is the one. Archie in The Strange Case of Patient X. This is scripted by George Gladier. Can't go wrong there. Pencils by Bob White. Inks and letters by Marty Epp. Colors by Barry Grossman. This is the story of an art thief. This is the story of Archie, this sort of Hardy Boys kind of sleuth. But we get this great Bob White art, and he renders the Riverdale gang beautifully in this classic kind of 50s style. It's old school. Archie's got the sweater vest with the R and the checkered pants. It's that really classic, legendary Archie look. But what we get in here is a lot of different locations. We get a speeding ambulance, like an old 50s style ambulance. We get the inside of a hospital. We get a big X-ray machine. All of this stuff that you don't usually get within an Archie comic. Another great thing about this is that the people who aren't the Riverdale gang, outside of those five main characters, really are rendered like regular folks. They don't have the button nose. They don't have really cartoony features. They're rendered much more like maybe the romance comics of the time. And that really sets the other characters apart. It's really as though you took the Riverdale kids and put them in the real world. It's a really unique story. I've never seen a story like this, and maybe a lot were made in that era that were similar. But this is a good long, maybe 30-page story. Lots of adventure. As I said, it's them tracking down an art thief. There's lots of scenes in hospitals. There's a mysterious Patient X, as the title suggests, who has all the answers to the case, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And then he comes back to consciousness and fills them in. But just a lot of set pieces, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of action, a lot of things you're not going to get out of your regular Archie comic. And it's all set in Riverdale, too, which is a lot of fun. It all wraps up at Pop Tate's. It's a classic looking, well-paced, and super original Archie tale. I think this is the story of the book by far. I get almost like a Carl Barks, Uncle Scrooge kind of thing out of this. There's lots of slapstick and running and mysterious characters and shadowy figures and stuff. Super, super rad. Can't say enough good stuff about this. We got some more Harry Lucy. Flipping through, we get to Pat the Brat. Pat the Brat by Bob Bowling. Can't say enough good stuff about Pat the Brat. Just a really fun, childish, simple stories. He's such a blatant cipher for Dennis the Menace, right down to the red overalls and stuff. But an important part of Archie history, for sure. And then we wrap things up towards the end of the book with another great Christmas story, a couple of Christmas stories at the end. And we're running long. But we should say, final story, Archie, Jingles all the way. We see the return of Jingles the Elf. I love Jingles. The Christmas holiday Santa elf who comes down and hangs out with the Riverdale kids. He shows up every year to help out and ends up messing things up. But in this story, he does, in fact, find a way to help out on Christmas Eve. So, there we go. Archie, Double Digest number 245, our book of the week. As always, fun stuff in there. But if you read no other story, head in to the center of the book, pick up Archie, Double Digest number 245, and read The Mysterious Case of Patient X. You won't find another Archie comic like it. Fantastic stuff. So that is it. That is the book of the week. Archie, Double Digest number 245. All right, Archie news. In Archie news this week, cool stuff over at firstcomicsnews.com. First Comics News syndicates this show, full disclosure. I was over there. They posted a press release. This went to a bunch of other sites as well. Some other folks reported on this. I saw it first over at First Comics News. Stan Lee's The Mighty Seven is coming to animation. It is coming back to comics. There's big stuff going on with this. Stan Lee's The Mighty Seven, if you weren't listening to the show or somehow missed those comics, it is not unlikely that you would miss them. It was announced years ago. Years ago, Stan Lee announced that he was going to be coming to Archie and creating some new superheroes. I believe this was around the same time that it might have been the same San Diego where he announced he was going to be creating some heroes for Boom. And those books he created for Boom came out years ago. They've come and gone. Some of them were good, I hear. I didn't read them. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't pertain to this conversation. But all these years later, in 2012, last year, we got 3 issues of a 6-issue miniseries entitled Stan Lee's The Mighty Seven. And I had a lot of fun with this. It was a cool throwbacky. It felt a little 90s. It felt a little hokey in the right ways. And it was cool. Stan Lee, I guess, plotted it. Someone else wrote it. But the basic premise is that Stan Lee, within the book, finds these alien characters and decides to write a comic book about them. And he enlists none other than John Goldwater, co-CEO of Archie Comics, who shows up in the book. Part of the first issue takes place within the offices of Archie Comics. The whole thing is super strange. I don't know what the plan was. I don't know who dreamed this up. I don't know whose idea this was initially. But the book itself is fun and interesting, and the story that's going on within it and behind the scenes is even more entertaining. But this week, we got the news. This came out of Kamikaze, Stan Lee's convention in California last weekend, that Stan Lee's The Mighty Seven are officially coming to animation. This had been rumored last year. There was talk that it was going to end up on the Hub network, and we now have a trailer over at slam7.com, SLAM, the number 7.com. And it looks good. It looks pretty good. They have redesigned a lot of the characters. I think they've renamed all of them. But this is moving ahead, and Archie Comics is attached. So how cool would it be if John Goldwater actually showed up in the animation as he did in the comic? Not sure if that's going to happen, but it appears as though there's going to be a new comic series. As I said, we only got 3 issues of the prior 6-issue miniseries. I don't know if that got scrapped so they could go into development for the animated series. I don't know, but this is going to be a full-length movie, and they've got a bunch of talent attached. Christian Slater, a bunch of other folks, famous people are doing this, and it looks like it's really going to happen. They've got a bunch of animation in the can. As I said, they've got a trailer. It's all finished. Good-looking animation. It's some flat stuff mixed in with some sort of 3D rendered spaceships and things like that. It looks rad. I really thought that we had seen the last of Stan Lee's Mighty Seven, and we haven't. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on. We're going to see that film next year, and when I know more, I'll let you guys know more. I'm excited about it. It's definitely, if nothing else, a curiosity. Also, this week, reported over at redcircle.com, redcirclecomics.com, Fox #1 sold out, total sellout, fantastic. Reviews on that coming in have been really, really good. We talked about the Fox #1 last week, of course, and the second printing has been announced with another variant cover. That first issue had, I believe, a couple covers by Dean Haspiel, the series artist, as well as a Fiona Staples cover and a Darwin Cook cover. And this second edition, this reprint of the first issue, is going to have a cover by Mike Norton of Battle Pug fame. He actually did some of the covers for the New Crusaders, actually some of those variant covers last year. So cool stuff, good news, great stuff going on in the world of Archie Comics. That is our news of the week. Stan Lee's Mighty Seven are hitting animation and coming back to comics next year, and Fox #1 is going back to the presses. How cool is that? Head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. You'll see links to both of those stories. All right, new releases. New releases for this past Wednesday, November the 6th, are, of course, Archie Double Digest number 245 for $3.99. That's this week's book of the week I talked at length about. Also this week, Betty and Veronica Double Digest number 217 for $3.99. About halfway through that is a great one as well. Good issue. More Christmas stories if that's what you're looking for. Also, I didn't see it come in at my shop, but it was solicited. It was scheduled to come out through Diamond, is that Afterlife with Archie second printing for $2.99. Keep your eye out for that. I'm not sure how many comic shops are ordering that, but if you missed out on that first issue, make sure to tell your retailer that you're looking for a copy, because there is a second printing out there, so you haven't missed out. Coming up this coming Wednesday, November the 13th, we're going to get the Archie Comics 1,000-page Jamboree for $14.99. This is a trade paperback. This is the second or third? It's hard to tell with all the solicits and my thinking so far ahead with all of these releases. This is at least the second in the series of 1,000-page Archie digests. For $14.99, you're not going to get a better deal than that in the world of comics. I guarantee you. That's coming out next week on the 13th. Also next week, cool, if you guys missed this, if you guys didn't read this, it's time to catch up and check it out because it was super, super fun, and I talked about it like crazy last summer. Worlds Collide. This is the Sonic and Mega Man crossover. Volume 1 comes out. That's the first 4 issues collected in an $11.99 trade. It was a 12-part storyline. We're going to get that together in 3 books over the next in the next coming months, I guess. But Volume 1 is out next week, the 13th, for $11.99. Over on the digital side of things at Comixology, on the Archie Comics app at digital.archiecomics.com, we get a cool, interesting, and unknown to me exclusive. This is Josie and the Pussycats, the complete manga stories. This is a $3.99 digital exclusive collection, 76 pages. It's a long one. A great deal at $3.99. And these stories are completely unknown to me. I remember seeing some manga versions of Josie and the Pussycats, maybe in some of the free comic book day issues or some of the Halloween issues, those free little ashcan editions that Archie did in the past. But these were all written by Tanya Del Rio. They're drawn by Chris Lie. Chris Lie. Not familiar with his work. Like I said, not familiar with these Josie and the Pussycats manga stories. I'm excited to check these out and read them. I would assume that they showed up in the Archie and Friends book, maybe as backup stories and stuff, but it's strange to me that they somehow amassed 70-plus pages of content probably in the last 10 years or so, and I'm completely oblivious to it. So I'm excited to go back and check that out. So kudos to Archie for pulling that together. I would have completely missed it otherwise. But like I said, that is a 76-page collection for $3.99 over at the Archie Digital Store. So those are your new releases for the week. For this past Wednesday, the 6th, this coming Wednesday, the 13th, and your digital exclusive releases for the week from Archie Comics. Finally today, I want to stop and highlight some work that some other folks are doing. I don't know why I don't do this all the time, but if you're doing a blog about Archie Comics or doing a blog and talking partly about Archie Comics, if you're doing any writing, any podcasting, any cool stuff like that related to Archie Comics, let me know. Send me an email at riverdale.podcast@yahoo.com or find me on Facebook or Twitter or any of that, and let me know what you're doing. I want to highlight it on the show. And this week, I wanted to talk about Undercover Archie. This is undercoverarchie.blogspot.com. I just found this blog this week. This guy Chuck does it. Chuck is over at archiefans.com posted in the thread about the Riverdale podcast. So I wanted to go and check out his blog, and it turns out it is this brilliantly curated look at the sort of pervy kind of moments of Archie Comics. He goes back and checks out a lot of the really early stuff and picks out the most salacious and interesting or sketchy or, as I said, pervy moments in Archie history. And I think it's really well done. I think it's tastefully done considering the subject matter he's working with. And it's all done tongue-in-cheek and with a lot of love. There's certainly a lot of stuff out there when you're talking about Archie Comics and something as wholesome and Americana as that. There's a real tendency to sort of pick at that or tear that down or point out the flaws in it or, look for something that's out of place, look for something that's sexy that isn't intended to be, that's suggestive that isn't intended to be. And I think the way that Chuck is going about this is really classy and really funny and really fun and very reverent to the source material. So cool stuff, Chuck. Really good stuff. Other things I've talked about in the past, of course, everything's Luke.blogspot.com. Luke does an amazing job talking about the history of Archie Comics. He did an entire run of blog posts about the history, going blow by blow, year by year. Amazing. It's an amazing resource and a really unparalleled resource when it comes to the history of Archie Comics. As you probably know, there are no books about the history of Archie Comics. There's not much in the terms of an oral history of that kind of stuff. So it's great to have a fan out there who has a real passion for it, putting this stuff together, and his commitment really shows in that blog. Also, a friend of the show, former guest of the show, John Troughton. John Troughton's blog at johntroughton.blogspot.com. He has done recently, he's written a lot about Archie Comics in the past. Recently, he's written a bunch of posts about the app game, the Riverdale Rescue game, and is sort of getting to the bottom. I just read a post he did about getting Kevin Keller and Jason Blossom together as a couple within that story. So, not hard-hitting journalism necessarily, but super, super fun stuff. And if you're looking to get into that game, John's really got you covered. It gives you a really good overview of what you're doing within the game, gives you some great screen caps, and fun stuff. So those are three very different, very interesting, and very, as I said before, very reverent of the characters, reverent of the properties, reverent of the spirit of Archie Comics. These are folks who love Archie Comics, who are each doing three very different blogs talking about Archie. So as I said at the top of this segment, if you're writing about Archie Comics, if you're podcasting about Archie Comics, if you're drawing fan art, if you're doing stuff like that, drop me an email at riverdalepodcast@yahoo.com, or head over to Facebook, search Riverdale Podcast, or at Riverdale Pod on Twitter. Let me know what you're doing. We'll talk about it on the show. I would love to. Let's keep this fan momentum going. A great way to help out this show is to download the show every week. A great way to help out the show is to listen to the show. Send an email to riverdale.podcast@yahoo.com. Ask a question. Drop me a note through Facebook or Twitter. Tell me what you want on the show. Ask any questions. Mention any content you want to see on the show. Be interactive. And let me know what you think of the show. A great way to help out the show is to subscribe on iTunes and write an iTunes review that helps people find the show. And another great way to help out the show in a financial way is to head over to riverdalepodcast.com and click that link for TFA, Things from Another World. This is a big, crazy online comic book store. Anything you can get at the comic shop, you can get through TFA at discounted prices. Everything ships quickly and efficiently. Never had a problem. Love their stuff. Head over to the Nick and Dent section. You'll get books discounted 50, sometimes 70% off for slight defects. I've ordered a lot of my Archie hardcovers through them. And I can't recommend enough. TFA, Things from Another World. Head over to riverdalepodcast.com. Click that link. Purchase any hardcovers, single issues, pre-order your books, any of that stuff. A percentage of what you spend will be kicked back to the show and help us pay for all of this stuff. So thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for listening every week. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for telling your friends about the show. And thanks for checking out that link for Things from Another World. On the way out today, I want to remind everyone to head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. There you're going to see the cover for this week's Book of the Week, Archie Double Digest number 245, that great Christmassy Fernando Ruiz cover. You'll want to see that for sure. Underneath that, you're going to find links to the news stories we talked about earlier in the show. You'll find a link there to like the show on Facebook, Follow the show on Twitter. Write us an email at riverdalepodcast@yahoo.com. If you are listening to this on Saturday, I'm going to be at my local convention, Coast City Comic-Con, right here in Portland, Maine. I'm super excited to be there. If you don't know about it, head over to coastcitycomiccon.com. And if you can't make it this year, definitely make it next year. Super, super fun. Those are friends of mine. They put it on. It's a labor of love, and they do a really, really great job. So if you were listening to this on Saturday or Sunday and can make it out, definitely make it out to Coast City Comic-Con. The Riverdale podcast is part of firstcomicsnews.com. They syndicate the show for us. That's a huge help. A cool thing that they do, a cool thing you can do, is head over to firstcomicsnews.com and get all of your new comics news. Check out all the podcasts there, the weekly articles and contributions from all sorts of folks. firstcomicsnews.com. I think that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for sticking around. Longer episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, thanks so much for listening. My name is Jonathan, and I'll see you again next week here in lovely Riverdale, USA.